In the quiet town of Nazareth, nestled among the hills of Galilee, lived Mary, a gentle and kind young woman. She led a simple life, filled with daily routines and humble devotion. One day, as she went about her tasks, something extraordinary happened. An angel appeared before her, filling the room with a radiant light and a sense of awe. The angel Gabriel greeted Mary warmly and told her she was favored by God. He brought astonishing news. She would have a son, and his name would be Jesus. This child would be called the Son of God, destined to change the world forever. Though surprised and even a little afraid, Mary listened closely. Trusting in God's plan, she accepted the angel's message with faith and humility, knowing her life would never be the same. She prayed for strength and guidance, embracing her role in this miraculous story. Not long after, a decree from Caesar Augustus echoed through the land. The Roman emperor ordered everyone to return to their ancestral towns for a census, so that all could be counted and taxed. This meant that Mary and her husband Joseph, who was descended from King David, had to travel to Bethlehem, David's ancient city. The journey was long and difficult, especially for Mary, who was expecting her child soon. Together, Mary and Joseph traveled the dusty roads, passing through villages and fields, facing the challenges of the journey with patience and hope. They relied on each other and on their faith to see them through. When they finally arrived in Bethlehem, the town was bustling with people from all over, each seeking a place to stay. Every inn was full, and Mary and Joseph found themselves turned away again and again, their search growing more desperate as night fell. At last, a compassionate innkeeper took pity on them and offered his stable, a humble shelter among the animals. There, surrounded by straw and the gentle sounds of the night, Mary gave birth to her son. She wrapped him in cloths and laid him in a manger, a simple feeding trough, because there was no room elsewhere. That same night, on the hills outside Bethlehem, shepherds kept watch over their flocks. Suddenly, the darkness was pierced by a brilliant light, and an angel appeared before them. The shepherds were terrified, unsure of what was happening. The angel reassured them, saying, "Do not be afraid, I bring you good news of great joy for all people. Today in the town of David, a Savior has been born to you, he is Christ the Lord." Suddenly the sky was filled with a multitude of angels, their voices ringing out in song. They praised God, singing, "Glory to God in the highest, and on earth peace, goodwill toward all." The shepherds watched in wonder as the heavenly host filled the night with music and light. When the angels had gone, the shepherds hurried into Bethlehem, eager to see this miracle for themselves. They found Mary and Joseph, and the baby lying in the manger, just as the angel had described. Overwhelmed with joy, they knelt in awe before the newborn child. Filled with amazement, the shepherds left the stable and began telling everyone they met about what they had seen and heard. Their hearts were full of wonder, and their voices carried the good news throughout the town. The birth of Jesus brought hope and joy to a weary world, shining like a star over Bethlehem and inspiring faith, love, and peace for generations to come. Jesus grew up in Nazareth, learning carpentry from Joseph and showing wisdom beyond his years. He was kind, eager to learn about God, and loved by all who knew him. Every year his family traveled to Jerusalem for Passover. When Jesus was 12, he went with them, but after the festival Mary and Joseph realized he was missing. They searched anxiously for 3 days. Finally they found him in the temple, sitting among the teachers, listening and asking questions. Everyone was amazed at his understanding. Mary asked why he had worried them. Jesus replied, "Didn't you know I had to be in my Father's house?" He returned home with them, obedient and wise. Mary treasured these things in her heart. Even as a boy, Jesus revealed his special connection to God. His journey was just beginning. At the age of 30, Jesus stepped into the world with a quiet determination, leaving behind the familiar streets of Nazareth to begin a journey that would change history. He was not a king or a warrior, but a humble teacher, walking the dusty roads of ancient Israel with a message that would echo through the ages. His public ministry began at the banks of the Jordan River, where he sought out John the Baptist. There, in the presence of a watching crowd, Jesus was baptized, marking the start of his divine calling. As Jesus emerged from the water, the heavens opened. God's Spirit descended gently like a dove, resting upon him, and a voice from above declared, "This is my Son, whom I love. With him I am well pleased." It was a moment of affirmation and purpose. From that day, Jesus traveled from village to village, teaching about God's boundless love and the promise of a new kingdom. He spoke to fishermen, farmers, and families, meeting people where they lived and worked. By the sparkling waters of the Sea of Galilee, crowds gathered, drawn by the hope in his words. Sometimes he taught from a boat, his voice carrying across the water to the eager listeners on the shore. Jesus spoke in parables, simple, memorable stories about seeds that grew, sheep that wandered, and forgiveness that healed. Through these tales, he revealed deep truths about God's heart and the way to live with compassion and faith. He taught that the greatest commandments were to love God with all your heart and to love your neighbor as yourself. These teachings challenged old ways of thinking and invited people to see each other with new eyes. Jesus called his followers to show kindness, to forgive those who wronged them, and to extend mercy even when it was difficult. He reached out to the outcasts, the sick, the poor, and those rejected by society, offering healing, acceptance, and hope. His compassion knew no boundaries. His message was radical for its time. Love not only your friends, but also your enemies. Seek peace, even with those who oppose you. He encouraged his followers to pray for those who hurt them, to respond to hatred with love, and to trust in God's justice. Come to me, all who are weary and burdened, Jesus invited, promising rest for the soul and hope for the hopeless. His words were a gentle call to those struggling under life's weight. Many who heard him found new purpose and joy. They discovered a sense of belonging and a reason to hope, even in the midst of hardship. Jesus' teachings were more than words. They were a living invitation to experience God's love, to be transformed from within, and to share that love with the world. Lives were changed by his message, and the ripples of his compassion and wisdom continue to inspire hearts today. One day, Jesus taught a crowd of over 5,000 in a remote place. As evening came, his disciples worried about feeding everyone. Jesus told them, "You give them something to eat." All they had was a boy's lunch, 5 loaves and 2 fish. Jesus took the food, gave thanks, and broke it. The disciples distributed it, and miraculously, everyone ate their fill. 12 baskets of leftovers were collected. The people were amazed by this act of compassion and power. Jesus showed that even the smallest offering given in faith could become a blessing for many. He cared for both their spiritual and physical needs. The miracle revealed God's abundant love. The crowd left, filled with wonder. Jesus' compassion fed both body and soul. After teaching, Jesus and his disciples set out across the Sea of Galilee. As Jesus slept, a violent storm arose, terrifying the disciples. Fearing for their lives, they woke him, crying, "Teacher, don't you care if we drown?" Jesus stood, rebuked the wind and waves, and instantly the sea became calm. The disciples were awestruck, whispering, "Who is this? Even the wind and waves obey him." Jesus asked, "Why are you so afraid? Do you still have no faith?" They realized his power was unlike any they had seen. In the calm, they glimpsed the divine authority of Jesus. Their faith was challenged and deepened. Jesus chose 12 ordinary men to be his closest disciples, forming a group that would become known as the Circle of 12. These men were not scholars or religious leaders but everyday people, men who worked with their hands and knew the struggles of daily life. Among them were fishermen, a tax collector, and others from humble backgrounds: Peter, Andrew, James, John, Philip, Bartholomew, Thomas, Matthew, James the son of Alphaeus, Thaddeus, Simon the Zealot, and Judas Iscariot. Each brought their own unique story and personality to the group. When Jesus called, these men left behind their boats, their businesses, and even their families. They stepped away from the familiar and embraced a life of uncertainty, trusting in Jesus' promise of something greater. Together they witnessed astonishing miracles: blind eyes opened, the lame walking, and the hungry fed. They listened as Jesus spoke words that challenged the world's wisdom and offered hope to the hopeless. They shared meals, laughter, and even moments of fear and doubt. Jesus patiently taught them about God's kingdom, using stories and parables to reveal deep truths. He prepared them for a mission that would stretch far beyond what they could imagine. He gave them authority to heal the sick, cast out demons, and proclaim the good news to those who had never heard it. Their faith was tested, but Jesus encouraged them to rely on God's power, not their own strength. The disciples sometimes doubted, misunderstood, and even argued among themselves. Yet, through their struggles, they learned to love one another and to trust Jesus more deeply. Their faith grew as they faced challenges together. At times, Jesus sent them out in pairs, giving them opportunities to put his teachings into practice. They traveled to nearby villages, sharing the message of hope and healing with those they met. In every challenge, they learned to pray and depend on God's guidance. Their journey was not easy, but their reliance on God grew stronger with each step. This inner circle, united by their devotion to Jesus, would become the very foundation of his church, a community built on faith, love, and service. They were eyewitnesses to all that Jesus said and did, carrying his teachings in their hearts and minds. Through their courage and commitment, the message of Jesus began to spread, first to their neighbors, then to distant lands, and eventually to the entire world. Their journey with Jesus transformed not only their own lives but the course of history itself, leaving a legacy that continues to inspire millions today. As Passover approached, Jesus gathered his disciples for one final meal, the Last Supper. He broke bread, saying, "This is my body," and shared wine. "This is my blood, poured out for many." He revealed that one of them would betray him, Judas Iscariot. Jesus also told Peter he would deny him 3 times before morning. After supper, they went to the Garden of Gethsemane. Jesus prayed in deep anguish, "Father, if possible, let this cup pass from me. Yet not as I will, but as you will." His disciples, exhausted, could not stay awake. Judas arrived with soldiers, betraying Jesus with a kiss. Jesus was arrested, and the disciples fled in fear. Even in sorrow, Jesus accepted what was to come. The night was filled with betrayal and heartbreak. The path to the cross had begun. Jesus was taken to the high priest, where leaders sought a reason to condemn him. False witnesses failed, but when asked if he was the Son of God, Jesus affirmed it. The council accused him of blasphemy and sent him to Pontius Pilate. Pilate found no fault, but, pressured by the crowd, offered to release Jesus or Barabbas. The people chose Barabbas and demanded Jesus be crucified. Pilate washed his hands, declaring himself innocent, and handed Jesus over. Soldiers mocked Jesus, placed a crown of thorns on his head, and led him away. Jesus, weakened, struggled to carry his cross. Simon of Cyrene was forced to help. A crowd followed, mourning. They reached Golgotha, the place of the skull. There, Jesus was prepared for crucifixion. At Golgotha, Jesus was nailed to the cross between 2 criminals. Above him, a sign read, "This is Jesus, the King of the Jews." In his pain, Jesus prayed, "Father, forgive them." One criminal mocked him, but the other asked, "Remember me." Jesus promised, "Today you will be with me in paradise." Darkness covered the land as Jesus suffered. He cried out, "My God, why have you forsaken me?" And then, "It is finished." With his final breath he said, "Father, into your hands I commit my spirit." The temple curtain tore in 2, and the earth shook. Jesus' death was the ultimate act of love, opening the way for forgiveness. His sacrifice was not defeat, but victory over sin and death. The story did not end at the cross. Jesus' message remains one of hope, love, and new life for all.